Here's what the motorcycle industry desperately doesn't want you to know. Major motorcycle brands are hemorrhaging dealers at a rate of 120 closures since January alone, and your favorite manufacturer might not survive until 2030. We're not talking about a normal sales slump. Motorcycle sales crashed 9.2% in the first half of 2025, the worst start to a riding season since the 2008 financial crisis. Picture this. You drop 15 grand on your dream bike today, only to discover in 3 years that parts are impossible to find and your local dealership vanished overnight. That's the nightmare facing thousands of riders right now. In this video, I'm counting down the 10 motorcycle brands facing total collapse or forced sell-off by the end of this decade. And number 1 will shock you. It's a brand with over a century of heritage that's drowning in debt so catastrophic, they might not see 2027. Stay until the end because this isn't just industry gossip. It's critical intelligence that could save you from owning a mechanical orphan that destroys your wallet. Number 10, BMW Motorrad. BMW Motorrad is bleeding in the American market right now. Sales dropped 10.8% through September 2025. And here's the gut punch. Dealers can't move their premium inventory. The BMW K1600B, that massive 6-cylinder touring machine, is gathering dust in showrooms across the country. When bikes costing over $25,000 won't sell, that's not a hiccup, that's a crisis. BMW won't collapse. They've got the entire automotive empire backing them. But here's what's coming. A calculated abandonment of unprofitable segments in the US market. BMW is ruthlessly pragmatic. If the numbers don't work, entire model lines disappear. They're watching the American touring and bagger market implode while their competitors bleed out, and they're doing the math. The R1250 GS and the Adventure lineup prints money. Those bikes sell regardless of economic conditions because adventure riders are a different breed. But the cruisers, the big touring bikes trying to compete against Harley-Davidson and Indian, those are luxuries that wealthy Americans are cutting from their budgets during inflation and high interest rates. BMW sees the writing on the wall. By 2030, don't expect BMW to vanish completely. Expect them to strategically withdraw from every segment where they can't dominate profitability. The K1600 line might survive in Europe, but the American market could see BMW transform into strictly an adventure and urban-focused brand. If you're eyeing that big touring cruiser, understand you're buying into a segment BMW is actively reconsidering. Number 9, Indian Motorcycle. Indian Motorcycle looks healthy on paper. They posted 4.9% sales growth, while Harley-Davidson imploded by 15.9%. Indian is stealing market share from their wounded rival. But here's the trap nobody's talking about. They're winning a battle in a war that's already lost. The entire American V-twin cruiser market is dying. The average US rider is over 60 years old now. That's not a customer base, that's a retirement community on 2 wheels. Indian is growing by cannibalizing Harley's aging faithful, not by attracting young blood into the segment. They're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Polaris, Indian's parent company, isn't stupid. They see the same demographic data everyone else sees. Polaris makes serious money from side-by-side vehicles, which captured 45% of the powersports market in 2023. Those machines appeal to families, younger buyers, and they don't require decades of brand loyalty to sell. The business case for continuing massive R&D investment into Indian gets weaker every quarter the cruiser market contracts. Reports show even Indian isn't immune to the inventory crisis. The Scout Bobber is moving slow in dealerships, and some dealers got their allocations suspended to manage the glut. When the success story of the segment still has inventory problems, that tells you everything about where this market is headed. Indian won't bankruptcy out. They'll fade through strategic neglect. Polaris will quietly shift engineering resources and capital to higher growth divisions. By 2030, Indian might still exist on paper, but expect technological stagnation, fewer new models, and a brand coasting on heritage while Polaris focuses on what actually makes money. The disappearance won't be dramatic. It'll be a slow suffocation as the accountants reallocate resources to divisions with futures. Number 8, Ducati. Ducati sells approximately 9,000 motorcycles per year in the United States. 9,000. That's rounding error compared to the Japanese manufacturers. Ducati exists entirely in the premium performance niche, selling expensive emotional purchases to people with disposable income. When the economy tightens, emotional purchases evaporate first. But Ducati's real threat isn't sales volume, it's corporate politics. Volkswagen Group owns Ducati, and VW has been hemorrhaging cash into their electric vehicle transition for years. Ducati is consistently labeled a non-core asset in financial analysis. It's a prestigious motorcycle brand owned by a car company that's fighting for survival in the EV wars. Every analyst watching VW asks the same question. Why are they still holding on to Ducati? Ducati isn't going to close, it's going to get sold. The brand has immense value, advanced engineering, global racing credibility, and that intangible Italian mystique that commands premium pricing. Emerging market conglomerates from India and China are desperate for that instant credibility. They can't build that heritage, but they can buy it. By 2030, Ducati will almost certainly be under new ownership. What happens to the brand identity, the Bologna factory, the racing programs? That's where the uncertainty lives. The new owners might maintain the essence, or they might strip the brand for parts and relocate production to cut costs. Current Ducati owners need to watch this carefully, because parts availability and service network stability could shift dramatically depending on who writes the check. If you're considering a Panigale or Street Fighter purchase, understand you're buying into a brand in transition. The bike you buy in 2025 might be supported by a completely different corporate structure by 2028. And that's not a comforting thought when you're dealing with complex, high-performance machines requiring specialized service. Number 7, MV Agusta. MV Agusta built 4,000 motorcycles globally in 2024 and called it a 116% growth success. 4,000 bikes worldwide. That's not a motorcycle manufacturer. That's a boutique operation selling ultra-premium art pieces to the wealthy elite. The Brutal, Super Veloco, Dragster. These are bikes for collectors, not riders. Here's the scary part. MV Agusta just escaped death by divorce. In January 2025, they separated completely from KTM and Pure Air Mobility, specifically to avoid being dragged down by Pure Air's catastrophic debt restructuring. They're now 100% owned by Art of Mobility, controlled by the Sardarov family. That sounds independent, but really it means MV Agusta's survival depends entirely on one family's financial health and commitment. MV Agusta has zero segment diversification, no adventure bikes, no small displacement commuters, no practical machines that sell in volume during downturns. They're all in on ultra-premium performance, which means they're completely exposed to luxury market volatility. When high-net-worth individuals tighten their belts, businesses selling six-figure toys die first. The brand has a pattern of ownership chaos and near-death experiences. This isn't new territory for MV Agusta. It's practically their business model. The current independence might save them from Pure Air's sinking ship, but it exposes them completely to market forces with zero corporate safety net. By 2030, MV Agusta will either be absorbed by another manufacturer looking for instant premium credibility, or it'll be in another financial crisis requiring another rescue. Betting on MV Agusta's independence is betting against history. Beautiful bikes, legendary heritage, completely unsustainable business model in a contracting market. Number 6, Suzuki. Suzuki motorcycles dropped 13.7% in US sales through September 2025. And the reason is brutally simple. They're using America as a dumping ground for bikes that can't meet modern emissions standards anywhere else. The US market has become the island of misfit motorcycles. The Suzuki SV650 launched in 1999. It's been fundamentally the same bike for 26 years. Suzuki discontinued it in Europe for 2026 because upgrading it to meet Euro 5 plus emission standards would cost more than they'd make selling it. But America's regulations are looser, so Suzuki keeps selling an obsolete platform here while cutting it everywhere else. That's not a business strategy. That's liquidation. This is a pattern for Suzuki. They killed the DRZ 400, the GSX-R 600, and GSX-R 750 in Europe years ago due to Euro 4 regulations. Those bikes still sell in America because our standards lag behind. The problem is that gap is closing. When the US inevitably adopts regulatory parity with Europe, and it will by 2030, Suzuki loses its entire mid-range lineup overnight. Reports show dealers struggling to move specific Suzuki models, like the Boulevard M109R. Customers aren't stupid. They see a manufacturer selling outdated technology and betting that American regulations stay frozen in time. That's not confidence-inspiring when you're spending thousands of dollars. Suzuki's motorcycle division is getting starved of R&D investment. They're milking old platforms for whatever revenue they can extract before regulations force their hand. This is the same playbook they used before abandoning the US automotive market entirely. By 2030, expect Suzuki motorcycles to quietly withdraw from the US, not with a dramatic announcement, but through a slow reduction in model offerings until the brand just fades away. They won't fight to stay. They'll calculate it's not worth the investment and walk away. Number 5, Zero Motorcycles. Zero Motorcycles pioneered premium electric motorcycles in America. They built the segment from nothing, established credibility, proved the technology works, and now they're trimming their workforce while the electric two-wheeler market globally grows 7.2%. That's the contradiction that signals desperation. Here's the reality of the EV motorcycle business. It's a capital furnace. Battery technology, production scaling, charging infrastructure, continuous R&D to stay competitive. It requires endless cash injections that consumer sales can't finance fast enough. Zero is a private company, which means they don't have access to public markets for capital raises, and they're too small to self-fund the massive expansion required to compete. The cruel irony is that Zero did everything right. They were first to market, built a loyal customer base, created genuinely capable machines, but being a pioneer doesn't guarantee survival. It often guarantees you bleed out before the market matures enough to be profitable. Tesla nearly died multiple times before reaching sustainable scale. Zero doesn't have Elon Musk's ability to raise billions from believers. Zero is actively seeking capital injection, which in business terms means they're shopping themselves for acquisition. They need a buyer with deep pockets, either a traditional motorcycle OEM wanting instant EV credibility, or a financial holding company willing to bankroll the losses until the market catches up. The problem is, potential buyers see Harley-Davidson's LiveWire disaster and get nervous about the business case. By 2030, Zero Motorcycles will not exist as an independent brand. They'll either be absorbed by a larger manufacturer, bought by investors who strip the IP and shut down operations, or they'll simply run out of runway and close. The pioneer rarely wins the race. They just show everyone else where the finish line is. If you want to support this channel's mission to expose the truth the industry hides, hit that subscribe button now. Every subscription helps us keep bringing you the information dealers and manufacturers don't want you to know. Number 4, Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson's fourth quarter 2024 numbers were apocalyptic. Revenue plummeted 47% to just $420 million. Global shipments crashed 53% to 14,000 units total as dealers desperately tried to clear inventory nobody wanted. Overall sales fell 15.9% through 2025. This isn't a rough patch. This is a company in crisis. The financial fragility gets worse. Harley suspended their full-year 2025 guidance, explicitly blaming escalating steel and aluminum tariffs that could cost them up to $175 million annually. When tariffs can potentially wipe out your entire profit margin, you're operating on razor-thin viability. One policy change in Washington and Harley's math stops working. The LiveWire electric division is a money incinerator. First quarter 2025, LiveWire posted a $20 million operating loss while selling exactly 33 motorcycles, a 72% decline year over year. Harley is burning cash, developing electric platforms that generate virtually zero sales. That's not investment in the future. That's lighting money on fire while shareholders watch in horror. Speaking of shareholders, there's an active proxy fight happening right now. Activist Investor H Partners is trying to unseat Harley's management because the current strategy is destroying value. When your own investors are fighting to remove leadership, that's the corporate equivalent of a vote of no confidence. Someone's getting fired or someone's getting sold. Harley recently secured $1.25 billion in financing, which stopped immediate bankruptcy fears. But that's just buying time. The underlying problems remain catastrophic. Modern models like the Pan America Adventure Bike and Nightster are reportedly gathering dust in showrooms. Harley tried to diversify beyond cruisers and failed spectacularly. They're trapped serving an aging demographic that's literally dying off, and every attempt to capture younger riders flops. Number 3, KTM. KTM dropped 23.8% in U.S. sales through September 2025, one of the steepest declines among major brands. But KTM's crisis isn't about demand for their products, it's about their parent company, Pure Air Mobility, drowning in debt so severe it threatens to take everyone down. KTM is the flagship brand, the profit generator, the crown jewel of Pure Air Mobility. They built their reputation on accessible high performance. Bikes like the 390 Duke that deliver genuine thrills at prices younger riders can almost afford. A 2018 KTM 390 Duke costs just under $7,000 total for purchase, service, and tires through 9,300 miles. That's remarkable value, and it's why KTM captured market share from bigger competitors. The problem is that value proposition requires continuous R&D investment to maintain their performance edge. KTM competes in motocross, enduro, and performance street segments where technological leadership is everything fall behind on development, and your competitive advantage evaporates instantly. You can't phone it in with KTM. Either you're pushing the envelope or you're irrelevant. Pure Air Mobility's revenue crashed 57.8% in the first half of 2025. The parent company admitted operational profitability won't return until 2027. If it returns at all, they're deliberately producing and selling fewer motorcycles in 2026 than 2024 just to clear dealer inventory. This is a company in survival mode, not growth mode. Net debt sits at 756 million euros, even after restructuring. When your parent company is $500 million in debt and bleeding revenue, continuous R&D investment becomes impossible. KTM requires constant innovation to justify its premium pricing over Japanese competitors. Cut the R&D, and KTM becomes just another middleweight manufacturer without the technology advantage. Number 2, Gas. Gas is the smallest brand in the Pure Air Mobility portfolio, specializing in trials bikes and niche off-road racing machines. In any normal market, being small and specialized is fine. In a debt crisis, being small and specialized is a death sentence. When Pure Air Mobility needs to raise cash fast, they're not selling KTM. That's the profit engine. They're not selling Husqvarna first. That brand still has significant heritage value and broader market appeal. They're selling Gas because Gas is the easiest asset to liquidate without devastating the core business. Gas has minimal U.S. market presence. Most American riders couldn't tell you what Gas makes or why they should care. The brand serves ultra-specialized niches that don't generate volume sales or broad dealer networks. In a market where nearly 120 dealerships closed since January 2025, how many of those were stocking Gas inventory? Almost none, because Gas barely registered in mainstream sales. Here's the brutal calculus. Pure Air Mobility is fighting for survival. They admitted they won't achieve operational profitability until 2027. That's 2 more years of burning cash while servicing 756 million euros in net debt. Every month that passes, the pressure builds to generate liquidity. Gas represents immediate liquidity with minimal strategic loss. By 2030, Gas will either be sold to a competitor looking for specific off-road expertise, or it'll be shut down completely as Pure Air consolidates around KTM and possibly Husqvarna. The brand might survive under new ownership, but it'll disappear as an independent entity within the Pure Air portfolio. Gas isn't failing because of bad products. It's dying because it's the smallest fish in a tank with hungry sharks. And when food gets scarce, small fish get eaten first. Number 1. Husqvarna. Husqvarna is the most likely major motorcycle brand to completely disappear from the US market by 2030, and the reason is simple. They're trapped in the blast radius of Pierer Mobility's financial catastrophe with zero defensive position. Husqvarna has over a century of Swedish heritage. The brand name carries weight in off-road and street segments. But heritage doesn't pay debt, and Pierer Mobility is drowning in it. The parent company's revenue collapsed 57.8% in 6 months. They're not achieving profitability until 2027 at the earliest. Meanwhile, net debt sits at 756 million euros, even after restructuring gave them a 1.187 billion euro profit on paper. Here's why Husqvarna dies first. It occupies the impossible middle position. It's not KTM, the flagship profit generator that Pierer will protect at all costs. It's not Gas, the tiny specialist brand that can be sold quickly for immediate cash. Husqvarna is the awkward middle child with significant overhead, shared platforms with KTM, and a less defined market identity. Husqvarna relies entirely on Pierer's centralized financial and technological resources. Every Husqvarna model shares technology, engineering, and often fundamental architecture with KTM equivalents. When Pierer needs to cut costs, the obvious move is eliminating the redundancy. Why fund 2 separate brands building similar motorcycles when you can consolidate around the stronger nameplate? The motorcycle industry's collapse is accelerating faster than anyone predicted. Want to know which specific models are losing value so fast they're basically worthless? Check out my video on these 20 motorcycles that are now worthless and why you should never buy them.